Hello, everybody, and welcome in to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver, a mineral exploration company focused on advancing its 100% held Kitsault Valley project located in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia, Canada. Shawn Khunkhun, it's great to have you back on the show again.
Great to be here, Jesse. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, thanks for being here. We have to start with this trade war that seems to be brewing between the US and China and the continued aftermath of Liberation Day, which has sent shockwaves through markets. There's a lot of speculation over which countries are going to come to terms with the US. We're now seeing the Chinese government come out and say they advise against certain countries taking too much of a pro-US stance, and that could affect future relations with China. So it's become a very interesting sort of bifurcation there. I'm wondering how you see this all playing out, and how do you think it could affect commodities markets, and in particular the precious metals?
Well, it's a great question. Crazy times we're living in. Liberation Day was quite something. Look, I think we could see resource alliances emerge, right? Specifically along east-west lines, and I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers, but the one thing I could say in sort of this fractured world that we're stepping into with all this uncertainty drives investments into hard assets. And, specifically, I'm really interested in silver. As we look at critical metals, and silver being absolutely critical, this bodes well. And I think for a company like Dolly Varden, who has that critical metal in a safe jurisdiction, in this bifurcation along east and west lines, I think we've got a really interesting asset that's very, very timely.
Yeah, and speaking of Canada as a jurisdiction, we've got an election in Canada coming up around the corner, which is going to end in either Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre as the victor. As a mining company operating in Canada, how do you view the stakes of this election? Do you prefer one candidate over the other? I know Pierre has kind of been more on the record talking about unlocking Canada's natural resources, especially with the energy sector, whereas Carney has a little bit of a green climate change sort of agenda, which perhaps doesn't bode well for energy, although I've heard a lot of people say he's going to have to build pipelines regardless. But I'm wondering, when it comes to gold and silver, as the CEO of Dolly Varden, is there one candidate you prefer? And what do you think the implications are of either a Carney or a Poilievre victory?
So, as far as Dolly goes, we've got to be constructive with either government. And, we've worked with left-leaning NDP governments in the province here, from a federal level, whether it's Pierre or Carney. Look, I think this is a significant election. There are significant implications. Both candidates, I'm happy, want to promote growth, and that's very positive. I think with Pierre, there seems to be a streamline on permitting and reducing regulatory burdens. So I really celebrate that platform and those policies. And I think with Carney, he's more of a globalist, right? From the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada, and so with a globalist agenda, there's more sensitivities around things like climate change, which again, I think are incredible for critical minerals. And so look, I see pros and cons for both. I'm not going to be outwards in terms of my own political leanings, but what I can say from the company standpoint is we'll work constructively with either government. The key is they're both pro-growth. And I think they're both welcome change to the governments that we've had in the past.
I want to talk about gold for a moment here because it held up incredibly well in the face of Liberation Day, Trump's tariff announcements, and subsequently hit new all-time highs. Today, gold is up as the broad market is once again melting down. We're at 3% -3%, give or take, on all the indices, the NASDAQ, the S&P, and the Dow Jones as we're speaking right now. And gold is up, looking like it could be headed to 3,500 here, which is incredible. Now, what does that tell us about gold's role and the potential future of the gold market?
Look, I think for 5,000 years, gold has been a safe haven. It's been a store of value. It's been something that universally, globally, has been recognized. And what's really interesting to me is we've been in an environment where we've been in a strong dollar environment with the USD. And I think what's really exciting for me as a gold investor and someone who has precious metals in his portfolio is we're starting to see the dollar roll over. And so, I've celebrated gold strength with a strong dollar. If you go back to the first time gold broke 1,000, the US dollar index was at 72. This is back in '08. The dollar index this morning dropped a full point down to 98. But if we've got a $3,500 gold price in a, call it, $100 index environment, what happens if we go down to 90 or 80 or 70? Or what if the dollar loses? And we've seen that this continued trajectory of, losing purchasing power. And, we talked about, Trump has essentially, gone out universally to every country on the planet and declared a trade war. And so we're in an environment right now where it's not a measured attack on one nation, one region. It's global. And, the world is saying we're getting out of dollars. And we've already seen that trend. So, look, I think we've seen now multiple $100 days on gold. This is one of many. And it's been record high after record high after record high. But, I just think that, when I look at the U.S., just the U.S. alone, it's not the 30 trillion in debt that I think about gold's relevance in this moment. It's the unfunded liabilities. It's the trajectory of deficit spending. It is, tell me why this gold's ascent needs to be curbed. It's a fantastic time. And, the other part of it is we're starting to see, I saw it a couple of Thursdays ago. I think it was in and around the 10th of April, where you had a day where some of the broad indexes were off significantly, 4%, I think the number was for S&P and some of these big indexes, and gold equities were up 4%. And so it's not just gold that's strong. The best in class large cap gold equities are also showing tremendous strength and, really participating in, selling their metal, and making thousands of dollars on every ounce they produce.
Yeah, there definitely has been a shift taking place. And this is, a lot of people have pointed out this is the first gold bull market where the miners haven't really acted as a levered play on gold. And I think that is going to change. I want to talk about silver because it didn't hold up so well in the aftermath of Liberation Day. It got knocked below $30, just as it was reaching close to 35 before the whole tariff fiasco took place. It has staged a recovery since then, hovering around 32 and change. It is notably positive on another day when the market is melting down, but not as much as gold. What are your thoughts on silver? Do you think its initial reaction to the tariffs tells us that it's not valued as much as gold as a safe haven asset? But of course, as you outlined earlier, it is a critical metal when it comes to so much to do with infrastructure. And, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. How do you feel that this fares for silver, the whole Liberation Day fiasco?
I was on a call this morning with my friend Chris Marcus from Arcadia Economics, and him and I were going through some statistics that the Silver Institute just published for 2024. And I think the number was either 67 or 68% of all of silver demand was industrial. And so I think in this moment where you see the sell off in crude oil, you see the sell off in copper from over 5 a pound down to 4 a pound, when you see that broader industrial sell off, silver's role as an industrial metal is highlighted. But I think the reason that you don't see silver selling off, it may not be appreciating with gold, but the reason it's holding in is because of the other 33% of the market, which is the investment demand. And I think that investment demand is holding up. And I'm hearing some anecdotal evidence from some very wealthy people around the planet where they're making the move, and they're, with this 100-to-1 silver to gold ratio, they're moving some of their gold position out of gold into silver, or for some investors, they're getting exposure to silver for the first time, in some of their cases ever, or for the first time in decades. So, look, I suspect we're going to start to see silver outperform gold. My only question is, do we need some type of clear catalyst? Do we need a rate cut? Do we need QE? Do we need, what is the event that creates that move in the price of silver? Because right now it is being thrown out, the baby's being thrown out with the bathwater.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to shift over to Dolly Varden because some major news. Dolly Varden Silver now listed on the New York Stock Exchange American under the symbol DVS, a huge milestone for the company. And now U.S. investors can obviously more easily trade the stock. There's going to be more liquidity. Talk to us about the journey to get here and the significance of now being listed on the NYSE American.
The process was rigorous, rightfully so. The highest standards in reporting and corporate governance we had to adhere to. We got through that in a very, very timely manner. We went through SEC review in 24 hours. We went through NYSE review in 5 trading days. So I got to hand it to my team, led by our CFO, Ann Fair, who led the initiative. And, I'm seeing it in the first day of trading where, for the first time in Dolly Varden's history, the volume in the United States is exceeding the volume in Canada. And, it's something like 7 or 8% of all capital in North America is in Canada, 7 or 8%. So for 5 years, I was relying on less than 10% of North American capital to grow my business. And today, I get to go to the biggest market in the world, and I'm one of maybe 10 silver equities traded on that market. So, we've put ourselves into the biggest market in the world where there's only 10 peers. And we did it at a time where the company internally has never been stronger. We've never had more cash on treasury. We've never had more ounces in the ground. And we're just about to embark on one of our largest exploration initiatives ever. So it's an exciting time. It's a historic day for us that we're recording this. And I'm looking forward to now going out and doing the work, which means getting out on the road and introducing the company to U.S. investors.
Yeah, and obviously institutional investors, it's now much easier to access for them as well. I'm wondering what interest you're seeing. Obviously, you said you're going to go out there and promote. I'm assuming you're going to be talking to some institutional investors in the U.S. as well. Currently, at the moment, how would you gauge institutional interest in the silver market? Obviously, we're starting to see gold stocks move. I think that trickle-down effect will eventually go into silver, particularly pure play silver miners. How do you see the future when it comes to institutional investment in the silver sector?
So precious metals stocks in general, precious metals period, are underowned by institutional investors and have been for decades. And so the big bet we at Dolly Varden are making is that when that shift occurs, when that sector rotation occurs, it's too late to then try to make the move. You have to be there before it happens. So we've put the company in a position so that when that rotation, and I talked about, in and around April the 10th, that 4% decline in on the broad equity markets and the 4% move positive in precious metals equities. Those are the types of rotations that we're looking to benefit from. So, there are a number of investors. For example, you look at anybody who clears through Goldman Sachs, they can't own a share under $1 a share, right? You look at, there's a long list of criteria, whether it's volume. For some, it's you need to see $1 million of liquidity a day. So as we continue to grow, and as our resource base continues to grow, and as the company's market cap grows, and its liquidity grows, and we're already 52% institutionally owned, but the goal is to really become to pass the prerequisites to be owned by the largest institutions. And it starts with the precious metals institutions. There's a lot of institutions, whether they're UK based, Swiss based, New York, that play the space. But really, why we made the move was for the generalist, right? And we see the generalists coming. We've seen them, they've had to go to gold because gold is one of the few sectors where you're seeing positive gains. And we suspect that is going to trickle down. Some of the big companies in the silver space, First Majestic, you look at their Q1 earnings record numbers, right? So we're starting to see not just gold miners, but also silver miners return record profits. And as investors start to move into that space, the natural progression after they buy the producers is to come down to the developers.
Yeah. Very interesting insights there, particularly into those requirements that those big institutions have in regards to their average daily trading volume and some of those other metrics that you guys can now more readily push for being listed on the NYSE American. Talk to us about the upcoming catalysts for Dolly Varden Silver that investors should be paying attention to right now.
So we've just secured 4 drill rigs, and in and around mid-May, the rigs should be turning. So we've got 4 rigs. We've got a fully funded 2025 program that we'll be initiating. And if you look at our past and you look at companies in our category, the advanced explorer developer category, drilling can be a very, very big catalyst. As you go out, you step out, you expand, you extend, you go to try to make new discoveries. That is often what's driving value for your shareholders. So we're about to launch into one of our largest exploration programs in the company's history, a program that's fully funded. That's number one. Number two, one of the things we've done at Dolly Varden, which makes us a little bit unique amongst our peers, is we haven't just relied on good geology and, inclined scientists who can make discovery. We have done something which is we've grown through mergers and acquisitions. We've grown through specifically regional consolidation. So, I have made it well known that my goal is to become a prominent player in the Golden Triangle. We want to be one of the largest claim holders. We want to own as much prospective ground as possible. So in addition to drilling, we're hoping to continue in the history of regional consolidation and growth through acquisitions. So those are 2 things, 2 of the goals that we have: to make discoveries and to get bigger.
Well, I'll end by opening the floor to you. Is there anything you want to emphasize, anything you want to bring to people's attention when it comes to Dolly Varden Silver and the silver sector?
Look, I think it's in a simple message. It's in its simplicity, and really simply put, silver's rare. And so getting exposure to silver codes is challenging. There's just a shortage of quality, sizable, high grade deposits. There's an even shorter list in safe jurisdictions. So if you're inclined to own precious metals, I would consider Dolly Varden. And what's really interesting in the current environment we are, where we've got, it takes 100 ounces of silver to get 1 ounce of gold. It's what's really interesting is even though we have 64 times more silver than we do gold on the property so far, about 65% of the economics today are in gold because of the high value of gold relative to silver. So, I think what's really interesting is we're giving investors exposure to safe jurisdiction, silver and gold.
And now that you're listed on the NYSE-A, the vast majority of viewers of this show are in the US, so much easier access for you guys out there who might be interested. I will put links in the description below to Dolly Varden's website as well as social media profile. Shawn, once again, always an honor having you on.
Thanks so much for having me. And just to reiterate, our new New York listed symbol is DVS.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.